Good evening, everyone. I am Ted.
And I am George.
I am sad to report the business process service has been retired.
The application service that supported the company growth for many years and slowing being replaced by WCF has finally reached the end.
A lot of controversy surrounding the justification for its retirement.
We have an exclusive interview with the primary developer responsible for the vilification of the service.
Sally, our in-house technical expert, is the exclusive. Sally?
Thank you, Jed. You were the original developer who started the demise of the business process services. How did you do it?
When I was hired, there was not anything much to do. Most of the services were already working great and scaling beyond anyone's expectations. I knew if I was going to make a name for myself, I had to do something drastic. So I started to tell everyone XML was slow, and they bought it.
That seems like such an obvious lie. No one questioned you?
Only the original developer, but I had plans for him. If I was going to be the new go-to person in the department, I had to poison the well.
Wow. That seems very unethical.
Yes, but I did not want to get stuck maintaining existing applications. That is so boring. The only way you got recognized around there was by developing new applications.
If the services were working so well, how did you justify a rewrite?
Sabotage mostly. All I had to say after normal network hiccups or database timeouts was, if the service was written correctly, we wouldn't have the problem.
Were people really that stupid?
You have no idea. Because the service was originally written in .NET 2.0, I knew the XML serializer had slight performance hit on its creation. So I created a console application, created a new service instance in a tight loop that ran 10,000 times. I proved the service was too slow to scale.
Oh my gosh. That sort of benchmark has been debunked for years, and the performance issue with the .NET serializer was fixed several versions ago. A developer would have to be living under a rock to believe that nonsense. With the business growing double digits for almost 7 years, no one bothered to think the services were already scaling as designed.
No. This is the best one. I first targeted a project that selected product data. That is it. Description, price, simple stuff. I was able to drag out that rewrite almost 10 months.
10 months to write a service for a single object.
I kind of exaggerated my skill level. I failed deployments several times where everyone had to come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. People were upset, but they knew I had the boss eating out of my hand. The other developers did not want to get on my bad side.
Not a single individual said anything about these failures.
There was one guy, but I shut him down quickly. All I had to say was, he is not a team player. And he gets on an employee discipline report. I liked having that power.
So the service was finally deployed and used everywhere?
Not really. The website needed a different solution and decided to write their own service.
10 months and the service was never used. That is an epic failure.
I know, right? The manager of the department was so embarrassed, but he could not take responsibility for the thousands of wasted man-hours. He decided to use some creative language to make it sound like the project succeeded.
Is drinking allowed? Was LSD pushed through the air vents? I cannot comprehend the levels of ineptitude it took to pull that off.
I know. I think I could have sold them unicorns on a cotton candy cloud. Crazy thing happened. For an award for one of the biggest and most epic failures in the company's history, everyone got an expensive Benchmade pocket knife.
Oh my God.
I cannot believe I just heard that.
What just happened? Next up we have Suzanne's interview with the former IT manager that led the rewrite. Suzanne.
Thanks, George. I am speaking with the former IT manager responsible for so many of the failures.
Thank you. It was not easy. Ha ha. Kidding, it was easy. The company was making so much money it did not matter how wasteful my ideas were.
Is that why you spent so much of the company's resources on the XML processor?
Yes, Again, it was easy. Because the architecture was so simple, even I could figure it out.
Were there other systems that had more problems and needed fixing?
Oh my yes, but they were too complicated. Placing an order, showing a product on the website, easy stuff. Inventory control and understanding the cost of goods sold, no thank you. Those users figured out workarounds for all the problems, so I figured. Too bad for them.
What about the obsession with WCF? Wasn't REST and Web API already becoming the standard?
I do not have time to keep up with technology. I mean, who knew web standards would become so popular?
Everyone?
Yes, and that was one big reason I stopped anyone from attending conferences. All anyone wanted to do was use the latest and greatest technologies. Keeping innovation at bay was a full-time job.
You could not have done all of that by yourself.
No, I had a team who kept close eye on anyone trying to improve the IT processes. If anyone got out of line, bang, I put them on report. There was one guy who kept pushing Agile. All Agile is good for is coding without a specification.
No, Agile is a methodology. It has almost nothing to do with coding. Agile's goal is to have better communication with users.
No, Agile is cowboy coding. Let's agree you were wrong and move on. Next question.
I can see why they fired you. Why did it take so long for the company to determine how inept you are?
Money. Company was making lots and lots of money and I was good at bureaucratic nonsense. The more paper I threw at people, the more forms I forced developers to fill out to get anything done, the more they thought they needed me. It was kind of embarrassing if you think about it.
What happened when a developer had a good idea?
We had a system for people to create suggestions. We had one developer who kept adding suggestions and I kept having to cancel or delete them. You would think he would get the drift.
No one had any good ideas.
Just the ones I created or stole from someone else. Most all of my good ideas came from the suggestions I deleted. Cannot let anyone see the breadcrumb trail.
What was your biggest success?
I would say the purchase of an application monitoring program.
Why was the software a success? What problem did it solve?
I didn't say it solved anything. It was the purchase itself. Several $100,000 worth. I was tasked with finding a monitoring platform and I was way over my head. I thought, just buy the most expensive, write a lot of fluffy documentation and someone else will pay the bill. They did. I got a nice bonus too.
Unbelievable.
I know. Even today I have to pinch myself when I think about what I got away with.
Okay, moving on. Tell me about the product search replacement.
Wow, talk about failures. That one was probably the biggest. My team took nearly 10 months to write and deploy a single service that only had one job, selecting product data from a database. That is it.
A failure of this magnitude should have been identified a lot sooner. No one raised any red flags.
To start with, my main developer programming skills were a bit, exaggerated. There was one developer who kept trying to point out what was really going on. I had to shut him down several times. I mean, what if the other teams thought they could question my authority? My decisions are final, no matter how stupid they are, and no matter how much time or money they waste. What if you ran an orphanage and you had one child who kept telling authorities all you did was spend food money on Pokémon cards? You want to know what I would do?
No, not really. I think we are done here. Back to you, George.
Good Lord, I did not think it could get worse.
It did.
Well, that is all, everyone.
Thank you, XML processor. You had a good life. Good night.
In the arms of the angel, fly away.
What other kinds of sabotage did you do?
I have so many, I am not sure where to start. This is one of my favorites. When I started, a lot of the code had embedded SQL formatted the way most capable database developers write code. It took a month or two, but I modified all the SQL so the code was only on one line of SQL.
One line of code. How could anyone read and understand SQL on one line of code?
Exactly. I bragged to anyone who would listen that I optimized the SQL to only one line of code. My manager was so impressed, I received a bonus.
Good grief. No one called you out on that bull crap.
One developer did. I was worried for a while because another developer backed his complaint that changing the SQL formatting made the code impossible to read and did nothing to increase performance.
Did you eventually have to go back and make the code easier to maintain?
No. You are not going to believe this. I would have secret meetings with my boss and I told him how more lines of code equals slower performance and removing the 100 lines of code made the service more efficient. I talked about how fewer bytes move down the wire, said the word optimize a few times. My manager told the developer if he could not prove formatted SQL made the code run faster, he was to stop being a roadblock to innovation or face severe disciplinary action.
And it took 2 months to reformat SQL? That has to be one of the stupidest things I've heard someone get away with.
Wait, it gets better.
Oh no. It cannot get any worse.
The company started to hire real database administrators, and when they started to monitor the SQL being executed, they flipped out over the unformatted and unreadable SQL.
Was your sabotage revealed?
No, because the database administrators were new. They did not know I modified the code, and did not know they could look at source control and see who changed it. All they asked was who wrote the one-line SQL, and I quickly pointed the finger away from me.
You lied?
No, I did not lie. Technically, I did not write the SQL code. I only changed it. There is a difference. Not only did I get the original developer in trouble for trying to expose my sabotage, I got the database administrators thinking he was also a terrible programmer. Win, win. For me.
Good Lord. Please tell me it got better.
It did. For me. The database administrators started to optimize all the embedded SQL in the applications to use stored procedures. I was selected to lead the modification of the code because my manager told the database administrators I was an expert at optimizing. In various meetings, I said things like, "This is the worst SQL I ever saw. If this code was written correctly to use stored procedures, it was like taking candy from a baby."